Assalamu alaikum. Today we will have our second lecture where we will discuss overview of cryptography. As we know that cryptography is the basics for learning different internet and network security mechanisms. So this is such as such a background information that need to know before going for advanced topics. So what is a cryptography? Cryptography is a Latin word. It is combination of two words, crypto and graphy. Crypto mean hidden and graphy mean writing. So cryptography mean hidden writing, or you can say that it is the science that make it possible for Alice and Bob to communicate with each other securely in the presence of Eve. Who is the Eve? Eve is the attacker. Okay, so Alice and Bob are two traditional characters that we always refer when we are talking about different protocols or algorithms, that Alice and Bob are communicating with each other and there is always a bad guy, Eve, or we also call it Trudy, who wants to listen to the communication of Alice and Bob. So if Alice and Bob are using cryptography, then they can communicate securely even if somebody like Eve is listening to their communication. Okay, when we have cryptographic algorithm that we use, if we are using them for encryption or decryption, so to encryption algorithm, here you see we have different, plain text, cipher text, plain text. Now what is this? Encrypt, decrypt, key. So these are some terms that you need to be familiar with. So to encryption algorithm, we give two things as input. One is the message that you want to encrypt. So that message that you want to encrypt, in cryptographic term we call it plain text. Okay, so and a password is needed to encrypt that message. So this password in cryptographic term we call it key. Okay, what is a key? Key is a random bit of string. So we give to this encryption algorithm as input your plain text and key, and the output of this encryption algorithm is a cipher text. And this cipher text, when reaches to the Bob, Bob will input this cipher text along with the key to decryption algorithm, and you got the original message or plain text back. So encrypted message is called cipher text and unencrypted message is called plain text, and key is your password that you give for encryption or decryption. Okay, what are the services or the cryptographic goal that is provided by cryptography? Like we already discussed it in chapter 1 that computer security provide you some services. So same is cryptography provide you these services, which are confidentiality, data integrity, authentication, and non-repudiation. And I hope you people are already familiar with these terms because we already discussed these in our chapter 1. Like confidentiality mean that we want to prevent unauthorized disclosure of information. Okay, data integrity prevent unauthorized modification of information. Authentication is identification between parties, like if us we should be able to verify that the source is same as it claims to be. Authentication. Okay, and non-repudiation is that an entity later on cannot deny for any of the previous action. If it sends some message or receives some message, it should not deny later on that okay, I didn't send or I didn't receive it. That is non-repudiation. So cryptography goals are these 4 services, we can say security services: confidentiality, data integrity, authentication, and non-repudiation. Okay, we can classify cryptographic algorithm along three independent dimensions. Okay, the first is the type of operation used for transforming plain text to ciphertext. Plain text is the original message and ciphertext is your encrypted message. Okay, plain text is unencrypted message. So what kind of transformation, because when you are encrypted a message, it means that you are changing it in such a way that it come into the shape that is not understandable by anyone. So this changing of original message is done through by applying some kind of transformation on it. So we apply in cryptographic algorithms two basic type of transformations when we are converting plain text to ciphertext. First is substitution and other one is transposition. Now substitution mean like substitute the plain text element into some other element. Like in plain text you have a alphabet A, so after substitution you substitute it A with, let's suppose, K. So this is what substitution. Okay, and how you map, how you do this mapping, like A is mapped to K, it is based on some criteria in algorithm that is being used. Then we have transposition. In transposition is like a permutation. Permutation is what? Just rearranging the element. Like alphabet A come in the original message at position number 3, but after transposition you change the position of A from position number 3 to position number 10. Okay, that is transposition. Transposition is just rearranging the elements in plain text. Then second thing is the number of keys that are used for encryption and decryption. So we can classify our cryptographic algorithm either symmetric algorithm or asymmetric algorithm. Symmetric algorithm where sender and receiver use the same key. Like if Alice encrypt a message, then Bob will decrypt the message with the same key. That means symmetric. But asymmetric mean Alice use one key to encrypt and Bob will use an other key to decrypt. Like sender and receiver are using different keys for encryption and decryption. And third dimension is the way in which the plain text is processed, like how you are processing plain text, whether you divide plain text into a certain blocks, like I have to transmit a plain text message of 1000 bits, so I change it into 5 blocks of 200 200 200 bits, and then I am going to encrypt 200 bits at the same time. So this is called block cipher. Block cipher when process input one block of element at a time. On the other hand, we can have a stream cipher. In stream cipher, we process the input element continuously, bit by bit. We are not going to divide these 1000 bits into any blocks, but we are giving this input 1000 bits to our encryption algorithm, and encryption algorithm will encrypt it bit by bit instead of block by block. So if it is bit by bit, it is stream cipher. If it is block wise, then it is a block cipher. So secure crypto system. When a crypto system is computationally secure, if it satisfies a certain requirement. First requirement is cost of breaking cipher exceeds value of information. Each information have certain value. Like if I give you an example, there is a contractor and that contractor want to win the contract, and for this contract there are let's suppose 4 different bidders who submit their bid, and the one with highest bid will won the contract. Okay, now for this there is one particular contractor. He got the encrypted bid of other 3 contractors, and now he wants to know that what bid the other 3 contractors gave, so that I can give higher bid than them, so he can won the contract. So for this purpose, because he got the bids of other 3 contractor, but it is encrypted, so to decrypt it, and he doesn't know the key, So to decrypt it, he got the services of some professional and asked him to do this service for him to decrypt that message without key. So perform cryptanalysis, it is called cryptanalysis. Perform cryptanalysis on it and tell me what is the bid given by other three contractor. So this professional asked him that, okay, I can do your work, but to do that it will charge you $10,000. Okay, so now this contractor know that if he will win this contract, he will have a benefit or he will have a profit out of this contract around 8,000. But just to get this contract, if he has to spend 10,000, so he will say that no, the value of this information is not that much that I should spend that much money on it. So okay, leave it. So cost of breaking cipher increase is more than the value of the information. Okay, so the first requirement is this. Second requirement for secure crypto system is time required to break cipher exceed the useful lifetime of the information. Each information has a lifetime, useful lifetime. Like for same example for this bids, the contractor has to give bid in 2 days. Okay, but professional said, okay, I will charge you only $1,000, but it will take 5 days to break this encrypted text, and then I can tell you what are the bids for other three contractors. So this contractor said, no, after 5 days this information is not useful for me because I have to submit my bid after 2 days. So the time required to break cipher, if it is more than the useful lifetime of the information, it means that our crypto system is computationally secure. And we're talking about computationally secure, not perfectly secure, computationally secure. Okay, it is breakable, but it takes so much time to break this that the useful lifetime of information will be expired. And third requirement is, if the best known attack is to try all possible keys. All possible keys. What is all possible keys? This type of attack is also called brute force attack on your cipher or on your algorithm. By the way, cryptographic algorithm is also called cipher. Okay, cipher is the term that is used for cryptographic algorithm. So brute force attack, what is a brute force attack? Try all possible keys, like you start with simply our you want to break the password, so you start with simple, maybe password is AAA. Okay, AAA does not work, then AAB, AAC, AAD, like this. So normally, like for ciphers, we have a key like 256 bit long. So if you are if key is 256 bit long, it means there will be one combination that will match the key, and if you try all possible combination of 256 bits, then it will be a huge value, 2 raised to the power 256 total keys that you have to try before you are able to get the correct key. So if the best known attack on your cipher, on your cryptographic algorithm is try all possible keys, then it means it is a secure, computationally secure cipher. Okay, I am telling you computationally secure, not perfectly secure, computationally secure. Okay, then when the crypto system is insecure, a crypto system is insecure, is not secure if there is any shortcut attack is known. Only possible attack is brute force attack. If other than brute force attack, if there is any other attack possible on your crypto system to break it, then it is not secure. It is usually very difficult to guess the amount of effort required to break. So what we can do is we can estimate time or cost of a brute force attack. Like if you want to compare the complexity of one attack with other, so already that okay, if we will do brute force attack is try all possible keys. Try all possible keys take let's suppose we have how many total possible keys, 2 raised to the power 256, and our computer system or computational system that we are using to do these computation can perform 2 raised to the power 5 computations per second. Then how much time it will take to break this cipher. So from this we can estimate like how much time is required, and if this time comes into years, like 256 bit nowadays is considered to be 256 bit key is considered to be secure for standard encryption algorithm, that is AES algorithm, advanced encryption standard algorithm. And currently available computational systems, it takes 100 of years to break this AES cipher if we are using brute force attack. So we say that it is computationally secure. Who will wait for 100 of years to get your key or cipher plain text? Okay, brute force search, brute force attack is one type of attack that is possible on all crypto systems. In any algorithm, in any cryptographic algorithm, this attack is always possible. So we find out that if it is the only possible attack on crypto system, then it is secure based on how much time it required to do that. Yeah, okay, on our system only brute force attack is possible, but this brute force attack can be done on our system in 10 seconds. It can break the system, then it will not be secure. It should be like, as I told you previously, time required to break cipher exceed the useful lifetime of the information. It should be more. So if we go over here and go through this example given in this table, we give different key sizes. If our key is 32 bit, total number of possible keys will be 2 raised to the power 32, which is equals to this number 4.3 into 10 raised to the power 9. And if we are using a computational system which require time required at 1 decryption per 1 microsecond, okay, so it will take 2 raised to the power 31 microseconds to break this cipher. Okay, why not 2 raised to the power 32 microsecond? Why it is 2 raised to the power 31 microsecond? Interesting thing is, in brute force search or in brute force attack, after trying half total possible keys, the probability of getting the correct key is higher, is more than 0.5. Possibility or probability of getting the exact key match after trying half of the key space is higher. So they said that the complexity will be like 2 raised to the power 32 divided by 2 will be half, 2 raised to the power, I can show you here, divided by 2. So 2 raised to the power 32, it is raised to the power, so I have to put it as superscript. Okay, so it is equals to what? It is equals to 2 raised to the power 32 minus 1, which is equals to 2 raised to the power 31 microsecond, and it is 35.8 minutes. So if we have a crypto system for which total key length is 32 bit, it will take around 35 minutes to break this crypto system by using brute force attack. If we are using a computational system which where it require 1 microsecond to perform one decryption operation. So after doing 2 raised to the power 31 decryption operation, we can guess the key or we can get the key. Okay, if time required at 10 raised to the power 6 decryption per microsecond, like nowadays 1 million, 10 raised to the power 6 is yeah, around, okay, so if we are doing 10 raised to the power 6 decryptions per microsecond, then it is very slow, very less time, 2.15 millisecond will be required, because nowadays our systems are really computationally very efficient. So 32 bit key is not a good key size for cryptographic algorithm, secure algorithm. So this will not satisfy the criteria of secure crypto system. If key length is 56 bit, so total possible keys will be 256, and how much time it required? 2 raised to the power 55 microsecond, and it is, if if we are doing 1 decryption per microsecond. But if we are doing 10 raised to the power 6 decryption per microsecond, then it will take only 10 hours. So it will take 10.1 hours time required if 10 raised to the power 6 or 1 million decryption we are doing per microsecond. Okay, how we get this 10.01 hours? This calculation, you know, you can do it like here. Simply if I go to calculator, and we know that it takes 2 raised to the power 55 microsecond if it require 1 decryption per microsecond. So we know that 2 raised to the power 55 is this number, and now we have a computation that can perform 10 raised to the power 6 decryption per microsecond. So we divide it with 10 raised to the power 6. Okay, so we got these many microsecond. We can get same if we have a machine that can perform 1 million decryption per microsecond, then this 56-bit key can be recovered in these many microseconds. Now microsecond is too much, we have to convert it into hours. So how to convert these microsecond to hours? First we will convert it into seconds. So we will divide it by micro is, you know, 10 raised to the power 6. So we will divide it in with 10 raised to the power 6, and we got seconds, and now we want it to convert it into hours. So we will divide it with 3600, and we will get how many hours? 10.01 hours. Okay, so how we get this value, you should know. Similarly, if we have a key that is 128-bit long, total number of possible keys are 2 raised to the power 128, and if we perform 1 decryption per microsecond, so it will take 2 raised to the power 127 microsecond to break this key. How 127? Same here. If here it is 128 divided by 2, because after searching through the half key space, there is a high probability that you will get key. You don't have to search whole key space, but after searching half. So 128 minus 1 will give you 2 raised to the power 127, and in the same way, if you perform 1 million decryption per microsecond, then it will take 5.4 into 10 raised to the power 18 hours to break this key. And if it is 160, now you can see that this is billion of, you know, years to do the brute force attack on 128-bit key if we have a machine which can perform 1 million decryption per second. Similarly, we have other, you know, examples, like here the last example. If we have a key that consists of 26 characters, like, you know, English language. Okay, we have a key that only is using English language 26 characters. So how many total possible keys we will have? 26 factorial. Okay, and 26 factorial is 4 into 10 raised to the power 26, and time required to do 1 decryption, so it will take like 2 into 10 to the power 26 microsecond, and in year it is 6.4 into 10 raised to the power 6 year, which is again a lot of time, even if we are using just 26 character permutation. But we are not using 26 character permutation. Why? Because there are other shortcut attacks possible other than brute force, which can reduce this time considerably, very small. Okay, why it is important to know cryptography very well when you are performing information security or a network security? Because it is the part of information security that work best, and using correct or choosing correct cryptographic algorithm for some particular application, it is very important. So as you will know more about it, the other part of security will behave like crypto. It would be better for you. Kirchhoff's principle, yeah, it is very important principle in cryptography, where the basic assumption that we do is the system is completely known to the attacker. You can never hide your system from the attacker forever. At one point of time your system will be exposed. What I mean by system, if you are using some cryptographic algorithm to do encryption and you propose that algorithm by yourself and you keep it secret, and you think that unless I keep it secret it is not known by attacker how this work, so I am secure. No, this is wrong assumption in cryptography. Your system, your algorithm is always known to the attacker. He knows very well how it works. The only thing that is secret is the key. So security of your system depends on secrecy of key. This is called Kirchhoff's principle. Kirchhoff principle mean cryptographic algorithms are not secret, they are known to the attacker. So where the security of algorithm depends, okay, on what particular thing? Security of algorithm depends on secrecy of key. As long as your key is kept secret, is not known to the attacker, your system is secure. And why we do this assumption that system or crypto algorithms are not secret? Because experience has shown that if you want to keep algorithm secret, but whenever this algorithm is exposed or whenever it is known to the attacker, it find out that it has really some weaknesses which can be exploited by anyone to break into it. And secret algorithms will never remain secret forever. At one point of time they will be known. So it is better to publish your algorithm so that if there is any weakness in your system, you know it beforehand. Before somebody exploit it, you know that okay, this proposed algorithm have this weakness and I have to fix it. Symmetric encryption. As I already told you, symmetric encryption, we have two type of cryptographic algorithm: symmetric encryption algorithm and asymmetric encryption algorithm. Symmetric algorithms are also referred as conventional encryption algorithm or secret key or single key encryption algorithm. Okay, so there are some other terms that are used for symmetric encryption algorithms are conventional encryption or a secret key or single key encryption. This was one of the oldest known encryption algorithm available in cryptography. Asymmetric encryption algorithms are discovered or being proposed in 1970s. Okay, so asymmetric or public key encryption algorithm are asymmetric encryption algorithm. So before public key encryption algorithm, the only alternative available for encryption is this symmetric encryption algorithm. And symmetric encryption algorithms, even after public key encryption algorithm, they are still most widely used algorithms. Okay. Symmetric encryption algorithm consists of 5 things, or there are 5 ingredients in it. Plain text is the original message, encryption algorithm, secret key, ciphertext and decryption algorithm. Okay, so you need to be familiar with this terminology. Plain text is the original message that you want to encrypt. Encryption algorithm is the transformation that you are applying on original message, and we have two type of transformations that we apply on original message to get encrypted message, which is as I told you previously, substitution and permutations, okay, or transpositions. Then we have secret key. Secret key is also input to the encryption algorithm. We know that to encryption algorithm we give two things as input. One is plain text, another is secret key. What is a secret key? Secret key is a random bit of string of bits. A random string consists of some number of bits. Then ciphertext is the scrambled message produced as output like encryption algorithm, after taking as input plain text and secret key, perform some substitution and permutations on it, and as a result whatever output is a garbled message, scrambled message, which is called ciphertext or encrypted text. Okay. Decryption algorithm is the reverse or inverse of encryption algorithm. You use encryption algorithm reverse to get the original message back out of it. Cryptanalysis. Okay, what is a cryptanalysis? It is the science of, or you can say the process of attempting to discover the plain text or key from the ciphertext. You have a ciphertext and you want to get plain text or key out of it without the knowledge of key. You don't know the key, you have a ciphertext, you are doing some attacks, you are performing some mathematical computation on this ciphertext to find out either the plain text or key that is used to encrypt that ciphertext. This is called cryptanalysis. So cryptanalysis is the attack on ciphertext to get the plain text or key without the knowledge of key. And brute force approach you people are already familiar with, where we are trying every possible key on our ciphertext until we get the plain text, until an intelligible translation. Intelligible translation mean you know, something that is reasonable from the ciphertext. Okay, this is the simplified model of symmetric encryption. You are already familiar with it. We have an encryption algorithm. To encryption algorithm we give as input plain text and key, and it produce ciphertext. Okay, we also write it mathematically as, you know, this E is the function. To this function we give as input K is the key, X is the plain text, and it produce ciphertext which is Y. Y is the output. Okay. So whatever this ciphertext, we give this as input to our decryption algorithm along with the same key that is used for encryption, same key will be used for decryption. Okay, K and encrypted text, and it will provide us the, or it will you know, here we perform when decryption operation on it. Decryption is the inverse of encryption. Decryption you know, cancel the effect of encryption and we get X back. So to decryption algorithm we provide K and Y. So Y is your encryption encrypted text, and you get plain text back. So the important thing about symmetric encryption algorithm is same key is used for encryption as well as decryption. Whatever key Alice use here for encryption, Bob need to use same key for decryption. Okay, classical encryption techniques that are being used to change plain text into ciphertext are substitution and permutation, or transposition. Permutation is also called transposition. So what is a substitution? Substitution mean when you map one alphabet or bit of plain text to the other bit or character of or element of ciphertext. Mapping. Okay, substitution is like a mapping, but permutation is like, you know, permutation, that is rearranging the position of the bits or characters in your plain text to get the ciphertext. So when we have old crypto systems, in old crypto system we either use substitution or permutation. Some algorithms are using substitution, some other algorithms are using permutation, but modern crypto systems are using both together, and not one time, maybe more than one time. And when we are using them more than one time, then each time we are using substitution and permutation, it is called one round. So they are like different algorithms have different rounds, and based on these rounds, you know, you come up with the final ciphertext. Okay, classical encryption technique mean old encryption techniques. before modern crypto system. Then we also use monoalphabetic cipher and polyalphabetic cipher. We can categorize our classical encryption algorithm as monoalphabetic or polyalphabetic cipher. Cipher mean cryptographic algorithm. Cryptographic algorithm is also called cipher. Okay, so in monoalphabetic cipher, mono means single. So one alphabet or one character is mapped to a unique alphabetic character. Each alphabetic character, like if I have a plain text like here, my plain text is HELLO. Okay, and then when I am going to encrypt it using monoalphabetic cipher, so and we are using, like, let's suppose substitution here. So H is mapped to K. Okay, I don't want to go here. H is mapped to K, E is mapped to, let's suppose, Y, L is mapped to J. Now L comes again in my plain text, and again it will map to the same character J. O is mapped to, let's suppose, P. So this is monoalphabetic cipher. Any time when a character is appearing again in hello, like, okay, if I change this hello message, okay, next message is hello how. Okay, now how, when we are going to encrypt it, it will be encrypted like this in monoalphabetic. H, previously we match H to K, so again H in how will map to K, not here K. O, previously we map O to P, and it appears again in plain text, so again it will map to P. Okay, W is the new character, it not appears previously, so let's suppose it maps to T. Got it? In monoalphabetic cipher, whenever there is a repeat of alphabet in a plain text, it will map to the same cipher text. This is called monoalphabetic cipher. We have different type of monoalphabetic ciphers like shift cipher, substitution cipher, and affine cipher in classical encryption techniques or old encryption techniques. Okay, and for polyalphabetic cipher, we use multiple substitution alphabet. A plain text letter can be encrypted to different ciphertext letter. Like same example, now I will give you hello how. Okay, so this is my plain text. So if we are going to encrypt it using polyalphabetic cipher, okay, let me do it over here. This is my plain text, and now I want to encrypt it using polyalphabetic cipher. So H is mapped to, let's suppose, T, O is mapped to P, L is mapped to K, and L comes again. Now when L comes again, it will not map to again to the K letter, it might map to something like Y. O map to P, H comes again. Now in polyalphabetic cipher, if H come back again, it will map to T, but in monoalphabetic, but in polyalphabetic it will map to some other random character, let's suppose S. O appears again in the plain text, previously it maps to P, but now it maps to K, let's suppose. W maps to Q, let's suppose. So this is called polyalphabetic cipher. We have different type of polyalphabetic ciphers. Vigenère cipher, Playfair cipher, and Hill cipher are some of the examples classical encryption ciphers which use this polyalphabetic cipher technique. Modular arithmetic. Modular arithmetic is something very important in cryptographic algorithm, mod operation, and you people are already familiar with mod operation. If we say A mod n, it is equals to R, A mod n. Okay, and if we compare this with this equation, they both are same. A is equals to Q n plus R. Okay, how we write it? Let's suppose if I said five mod 2. What will be 5 mod 2? 1. How we get 1? 1 is the remainder. Okay, how we get this 1? It's like childish example. 5, 2, 2s are 4 and 1. 1 is remainder. So here remainder comes. Okay, let's go for this example. Now what is A here? A is 5. What is quotient here? You know, this is remainder and this is our quotient. Okay, so quotient here is 2. What is n here? N here is 2, that is divisor. And what is r? Okay, I should write it 2, not n. N is here 2 and r is 1. So 2 into 2 minus 1. Q n, quotient multiplied by n plus r. So r is what? Your remainder. So mod function is the function which gives you remainder. All of you are familiar with it, but it is very, very important when we are talking about cryptographic algorithms, and they treat it like this. A mod n is equals to r is actually equal to A is equals to q n plus r. What is q? What is n? What is r? I explain it for you here. And remainder is always greater than or equals to 0 and less than or equals to n minus 1. You cannot have remainder here more than 2, like 3. No, it's not possible. What about the okay, another thing that you might be encountering such kind of statements like here. So what it means, the integer modulo, mod is also called modulo m, denoted by this zm. Okay, this zm is the set of integer from 0 up to m minus 1 where addition, subtraction and multiplication is performed in modulo m, wherever, or we can say this is a closed group. In mathematics set theory we call it closed group. Number theory we call it closed group, which consists of integer from 0 to m minus 1, and like, okay, I can give you example here. We have z10. Okay, now z10 will be a set consist of integer from 0, 1, 2 up to what? 9. 0 to 9 comes into this z10. Now we say that addition, subtraction and multiplication is performed modulo m. So if we are going to perform any operation here, like in this set 2 plus 9, so 2 plus 9 we will not perform normal 2 plus 9 but 2 plus 9 mod 10. We will perform this addition operation as modulo operation, modulo m. M is 10, so it will be 2 plus 9 is 11. 11 mod 10. 11 mod 10 will give me what? 1. So 2 plus 9, in this case instead of 11 it will be 1. We will not say 2 plus 9 is 11, we will say 2 plus 9 is 1. 1 is the member of this set. So whatever operation you perform, the result should be member of this initial set. Okay, same is if I am going to do 2 minus 9 mod 10, again it will be mod 10. So 2 minus 9 mod 10 is what? Now this is bit complicated. 2 minus 9 gives you minus 7. Okay, and minus 7 mod 10 we need, because here in this set we have number all positive number. Minus 7 is not part of it, so minus 7 is not the correct answer for it. We need the answer of 2 minus 9 mod 10, one number in this set 0 to 9. So minus 7 mod 10, how to make it positive number? It will be 3, 10 minus 7, or if you will do this, you know, normal school day operation, 10 here and minus 7 here. So what will you do? You will do 10 ones are 10 over here, and you will get 3. Remainder is 3. You will find some number that is greater than this, because we want positive remainder here. Remainder will not be negative. Remainder comes in the range of 0 to n minus 1. Okay, so it is 3. And similarly, if you are doing multiplication, 2 multiplied by 9, so this also will not be a normal operation. It will be mod. It will be performed with mod m, and m is 10. So 18 mod 10 is 8. Answer will be 8, not 18. Here we have some other examples. Like in Z25, 13 plus 16 is equals to 4. Although 13 plus 16 is 29, but what we do is 29 mod 25. 29 mod 25 will give you 4. Okay, mod 25, it will give you what? Answer 4. And similarly other examples. So this modular arithmetic is very, very important in cryptographic algorithms. We use them a lot. In each cryptographic algorithm, addition, subtraction, multiplication operations are not normal operation. They are always performed modulo m. First classical encryption cipher that we are going to discuss is called Caesar cipher or shift cipher. It is using substitution, transformation, and it is monoalphabetic cipher. It is very simple cipher where we are replacing each letter of alphabet with the letter standing p places further down the alphabet. Like, you know, encryption is this operation, p plus k mod 26. Why we using mod 26? Because we have 26 alphabets in English, so we use Z26, which consists of 0 up to 25, you know, elements, and we assign to each alphabet one integer mapping, like A is 0, B is 1, C is 2, and encryption and decryption is very simple. Encryption is p plus k mod 26 and decryption is c minus k mod 26. Its crypt analysis is very easy because total possible keys are only 25. Okay, let's go for an example. It will be more clear for you. Okay, so here in this example we show a Caesar wheel over here. Okay, now what we do is, these are our English alphabets A to Z. A will be mapped to integer 0 and Z will be mapped to integer 25, not 24. There must be some missing. Let me check. Here X was missing, so when we add X it is okay. Now we have total 26 alphabet characters, alphabets in English. A is mapped to 0, B is 1, and so on, and Z is mapped to 25. So here you see a wheel where we perform mapping, like, you know, if key is 19, A is mapped to T, B is mapped to U, C is mapped to V. Now how A is mapped to T when key is 19? We know that when we perform encryption, encryption is what? E is equals to or we can say your ciphertext, we are saying ciphertext as C is equals to plain text plus key mod 26. mod 26. Okay, here mod 26. So plain text alphabet A is equals to cipher text alphabet T if key is equals to 19. How? A is what? 0. Our key is what? 19. So 0 plus 19 mod 26 is equals to 19. And which character is on 19? Mapping this is 19. So A is mapped to T. A will be mapped to T if K is 19. Okay, like here shown in this wheel. When you move this wheel, key will be left and right. If you move it clockwise, key will change, like A will map to S, then key will be 18. If you move anti-clockwise, key will increment, like A will map to U and key will become 20. Okay, so this is very, very simple. Here we have an example. If this is our plain text, Caesar used a shift of 3 to protect message. My key is 3, shift of 3. Okay, K is 3. Then this is the corresponding cipher text. Now how we got this cipher text? Okay, so first thing is C. C will be mapped to F. How C will map to F? C is what? 2. Key is what? 3. 2 plus 3 mod 26. Mod 26 is equals to what? 5. 5 is what? F. 5 is what? F. So C will map to F. A will map to D. So in simply you can say that we are giving 3 shifts. After A, the third is B, C, D. So A is changed to D. E is mapped to H. Why? E, F, G, H. Third character. Okay. Here it is. Okay. S is mapped to V. S, S, U, V, W. No, S should map to W. S should not map to V. S should map to W. S, T, U, V. Okay, sorry, I just forgot alphabets. So S will map to V. R is mapped to D. Now how R is mapped to D? Here we have R. No, A is mapped to D. R is mapped to X, and so on. Okay, if we have let's suppose Z, then Z will be mapped to what? In plain text I have Z and I have to get cipher text for it. So Z will be shift 3. So 25 plus 3 mod 26. Mod 26. So 25 plus 3 is 28. 28 mod 26 will give you what? 2. So Z will map to 2, that is C. Z will map to C. Got it? Or you can take, we have reached to Z, so 3 shifts of Z is A, B, C. Simple. Or if we have a Y, Y will map to what? Y, Z, A, B. Y will map to B. X will map to what? X, Y, Z, A. So X will map to A, and so on. So this is shift cipher. It is very simple. If you want to do decryption is again what? Y minus K. So if you want to get P back, so cipher text minus key mod 26. So if I want to do decryption, and if this is my encryption text, so F will map to C. How F will map to C? F is what? F is 5. Key is what? Key is 3. So 5 minus 3 mod 26 will give you 2. What is 2? 2 is C. You can say here C. So this is map, this will map to C, and so on. It is very simple. Okay, next is Caesar cipher is very simple cipher. It was used around 2000 years ago, and its script analysis is very easy because we have only 25 keys, so somebody can perform crypt analysis on simple paper in just few minutes, even on paper, not using computer. If it is computer, maybe less than microseconds. Okay, let's go for substitution cipher. Substitution cipher is the generalization of Caesar cipher. Like in Caesar cipher, we have total possible keys 25, but and 25 number of total possible keys, it takes very less time to perform brute force on it. So we need to increase our key space. We need larger key space so that it takes more time to perform brute force attack. So in order to get larger key size, substitution cipher takes larger key size equals to, instead of 25, it is 26 factorial. We have total 26 possible alphabets, and we can arrange them in different permutation orders. So maximum number of possible permutation order for 26 characters can be 26 factorial. So we have larger key space in substitution cipher, which is equals to 26 factorial, and we use as a key any one permutation out of possible 26 factorial permutations. Okay, so let's suppose, like here in this example, there is one possible permutation out of 26 possible permutation where we are performing mapping A to C, B to G, C to H, and whatever. Okay, so on. So how we can perform encryption and decryption? This is encryption operation and this is decryption operation. On during encryption, we perform substitution on each plain text to get cipher text, and during decryption we perform inverse permutation, from cipher text to plain text. Okay, let me give you some simple example over here. If I have this plain text, hello, so what will be the corresponding cipher text using substitution cipher? How will we do encryption? This will be the corresponding decryption of hello. We look here in this is our key, okay. So H is mapped in our key from plain to cipher. H is mapped to N, so H will be replaced with N. Okay, E is mapped to Z, so Z. L is mapped to X, so X. O is mapped to Y. So if this is plain text, this will be corresponding cipher text using substitution cipher with this key. This is your key. Now key is not a single integer number, it is a complete permutation. Okay, one permutation out of possible 26 factorial permutation. Okay, how to do decryption? Decryption is just, you have this cipher text and this is key, and now you want to get this plain text, so you will go here N. Okay, now you will look N here in this mapping. Okay, N is mapped to H, so N will be H. Okay, Z is mapped to E, so E. X, where is X here? X is mapped to L. Y is mapped to O. This is Y. O. So you should know, when we are doing encryption, we are using permutation like this, plain text to cipher text, and when we are doing decryption, we use it from cipher text to plain text, our key or permutation. So this is substitution cipher. Now our key space is much larger than normal shift cipher. Normal shift cipher only 25 keys, but here now we have 26 factorial keys instead. Third type of cipher, which is substitution and polyalphabetic. By the way, this previous one is substitution and monoalphabetic. Vigenère is substitution but polyalphabetic. Okay, so Vigenère is actually when we are using multiple shift ciphers or Caesar ciphers at the same time. The key is not now a single digit, it is multiple letters or multiple digits. Okay, like key is long, not a single letter or a single digit. Now here like K1 to KD, and the ith letter specified ith alphabet to use. Okay, let's go through this example, it will be very clear for you. Now let's suppose our key length is 6, so it means we will have a key consist of 6 characters or 6 alphabets or 6 numbers. Okay, so let's suppose my key is cipher. Now instead of one character or one alphabet, it is multiple characters. So let's suppose key is cipher. So what we do is, first thing is we map this key to corresponding integers using the same like shift cipher. Like see this table, C A B C D, A is mapped to 0, B to 1, Z to 25. So using this table, when we have key cipher, so it will change to CIPHER cipher. So it will change to which number? C is what? 2, I is what? 8, P is what? 15. Okay, and so on, comma comma. So here now my key is changed to cipher, will be changed to this corresponding integer number as per shift cipher mapping. Okay, now this is plain text. We have a key, we have a plain text, and we say that Vigenère cipher is multiple Caesar cipher or shift cipher. How it is multiple Caesar cipher or shift cipher? Now what we do is, so in order to encrypt it, if this is our plain text and this is our cipher, now what you do is first write your plain text here, like you know THIS, like this is plain text. This crypto system is not secure, so I'm going to write it, and here we put a space just to after every 6 alphabets, because our key length is 6. So key will repeat. Key is only 6 character long, so after every 6 characters, like you know you make a group 1 2 3 4 5 6. So first group 1 2 3 4 5 6, second group 1 2 3 4 5 6, third group 1 2 3 4 5 6, fourth group. After that you have to repeat key with each 6 characters same. So now here we write you know first 6 character, and we map these 6 character to corresponding integer numbers. You can see here T is 19 and H is 7 and all that according to our shift cipher, you know, mapping A to 0, B to 1, Z to 25, same mapping. And again here we know the key mapping already we done, so we write those number 2, 8, 15, 7, 4, 17. Now what we do here is, when we are doing encryption in shift cipher is what? Plain text plus key mod 26. So 19 plus 2 is 21, 21 mod 26 is 21, 7 plus 8 is 15, 15 mod 26 is 15, and so on. Okay, like here we put 8, 17 plus 17 is 34, 34 mod 26 gives you 8. Okay, so this is our ciphertext, and then we map these ciphertext to corresponding alphabets using the same table where A is mapped to 0 and Z is mapped to 25. So this is one way to perform encryption using Vigenère cipher, and when we are doing decryption it is just opposite, 21 minus 2, okay, just ciphertext minus key. When we are doing encryption, plain text plus key. Another simple way to do encryption using Vigenère cipher is using this Vigenère square table. Okay, in this Vigenère square table, like in the previous example we have you know, I will do just first step. Okay, not better this. Okay, if this is my plain text THIS this, and CR. Just I am writing first 6 character, and this is my key. Key is cipher, CIPHER. So what will be the corresponding cipher text using this Vigenère square table? Now what we do here is we map plain text and cipher text here in this table, like plain text is T and cipher text and key is C. So here plain text T, okay, and key is C. Let me do it like this, T and C, you know, first mapping TC. So T here in the row, first row, and here in the first column we map C, and then wherever they intersect, both this T and C intersect here on this V, so the corresponding you know, cipher text is V. Okay, next is H and I. So H and I, so wherever they intersect, like here, and this is what, P. This is more easy. Then I and P, I and P. So here they map it over here to X, okay, and so on. So you can use this Vigenère cipher also to do encryption. Now how to use this Vigenère cipher for decryption? This is your assignment. You should see how can we use this Vigenère cipher for decryption effectively. I am not going to tell you, this is you have to think about it, but you can use this same table perform decryption. Okay, one time pad. Now one time pad is also the example of substitution and polyalphabetic cipher. It actually extends Vigenère cipher where the key is as long as plain text. So Vigenère cipher, you know, you right now see here, this is Vigenère cipher. So here one time pad is same like Vigenère cipher, but the only difference is here in Vigenère cipher we fix the key length. Okay, like here our key length is 6, but our plain text length is more than 6. It is 1 2 3 4 6 4s are 24, 25, 26, 27. Here plain text length is 27 character, but key length is 6 character. But in case of one time pad, if key length is 26, plain text is 26, 27, then key should also be same length as our plain text. Okay, and encryption is performing in the similar way like in a Vigenère cipher. One time pad cipher is considered to be computationally secure cryptographic algorithm, and perfectly secure, actually not computationally but perfectly secure algorithm. It gives you perfect secrecy as long as key length is equals to or greater than message length. It is the only cipher in cryptography which is considered to be perfectly secure algorithm, but practically it is very difficult to use it. Why practically it is very difficult to use it? Because you cannot generate same key length as equals to plain text, because key any string to satisfy as a proper key, it has to fulfill certain characteristics of randomness. Your key should be a random string of bit, and to satisfy this randomness characteristic, it is very difficult to generate very long key same equals to message length. So it is very difficult to use in practice, but it is one and only cipher which is cryptographically perfectly secure cipher. So in one time pad we also called it Varnam cipher. So key is a random bit sequence as long as plain text, and now encryption and decryption is very simple. Okay, if this is my key and this is plain text, so what is encryption? Encryption is simply XOR operation, bit by bit XOR. 1 XOR 0 is 1. 0 XOR 0 is 0, 1 XOR 1 is 0, and so on. And when you perform decryption, decryption is what? Ciphertext plus key, and you will get plain text back. Ciphertext and key, you perform again, you know what, this exclusive OR, XOR, okay, bit by bit, and you will get plain text back. So in one time pad, encryption and decryption operation is same. When you are getting ciphertext, what you do is bit by bit, plain text XOR key, and when you are getting plain text back, what you do is, like here, this is interesting thing. What is your ciphertext? Ciphertext is plain text plus key. So here if we substitute plain text plus key as a ciphertext, and we exclusive OR again it with key, if you exclusive OR two strings together which are same, like if I perform XOR of 101 101, XOR of two strings which are same is always 0, is always 0. So key plus key, when key XOR key, it gives you 0, and anything XOR with 0 will give you the same thing back. Anything when you perform XOR, like if I have this string and I XOR it with 0, I will get same string back. 101 XOR 0 will give me 101. So encryption and decryption both is same, and XOR operation, very very simple XOR operation. So according to this statement, this is historic statement, very important statement by Claude Shannon, who is the scientist who actually have a lot of contribution in cryptographic algorithm and number theory. So according to him, he said that cipher achieves perfect secrecy. A cryptographic algorithm is said to be perfectly secure if and only if there are as many possible keys as possible plain text. Any plain text and key never repeat. Plain text repeat, but key never repeat, and key length is same as plain text, and every key is equally likely. Equally likely mean randomness property of the key, and to get randomness property of the key, it is very difficult to generate purely random numbers. Okay. Okay, another algorithm that is used in as a classical cryptographic algorithm is rail fence, which is an example of permutation and permutation or transposition cipher. Previously we saw all the examples, different algorithms which are substitution cipher. Now this is one example of permutation or transposition cipher, where we get ciphertext from plain text by just rearranging the order of the alphabets in plain text. Like we call it rail fence because it goes like, you know, this rail fence shape it make. So the key for the rail fence cipher is just the number of rails. Like here we have 1 2 3 rails here, so key is 3. So now what we do is we have given a plain text and key, and now how to get ciphertext? You have to write ciphertext in this table, your plain text in this table in a particular format that make this rail fence pattern. Like here we have a plain text geeks for geeks. The length of this plain text is, we have total 13 characters in it, and our key length is our key is 3. It's a single character 3. Okay. So now what we do is we will create a table which consists of 13 columns and 3 rows. Okay, number of alphabets in plain text, that many columns, and key number of rows. So 13 by 3, we have this table, 13 columns and 3 rows. Okay, now we will write this text inside this table in this format, like G E E K S, like this. Okay, Now we, after writing this plain text over here, now how we get ciphertext? We get ciphertext by reading it row by row. First row is G S G S, second row then E K F R E K, E K F R E K, and last row E O E. So this is our ciphertext. Okay, how to do decryption when we are doing rail fence cipher? Like here I go through some example online. So if this is our ciphertext and we have to decrypt it. Now how to decrypt this ciphertext to get the plain text back? We know that in ciphertext how many number of characters, we first have to count number of character in our ciphertext. Like here we have how many, 1 2 3 4 5 6. 29 character and key is 4. So we will construct this table of same length, 29 column and 4 rows, and then we will draw this pattern like you see over here, this pattern of rail fence. Draw this pattern of rail fence and then take these character from it and put it in this pattern row by row instead of column wise, because during encryption we write we enter these character column wise in a particular pattern, but here we will do it row wise. So first row will have T E K O O, and then second row will have next characters that should place over here in this place, okay, where we already draw the pattern. So once you will fill this table, you will get plain text back, and now you can read it here in this pattern wise. Like here they said that they are at whatever they are attacking from the north. So if this is plain ciphertext, the corresponding plain text is they are attacking from the north. So this is how we can do decryption in rail fence.